A dispute of $100 leads to a farm worker committing mass murder. 66-year-old Chulin Zhao, a Chinese immigrant, worked at the Half Moon Bay mushroom farm in California. He lived on the farm in what was described as a horseshoe-shaped shed covered by a blue tarp. It was here that he would grow onions for himself and his wife. The two immigrated from China 11 years previously, leaving behind their 40-year-old daughter in their homeland. Despite always having a serious demeanor, Chunli would enjoy his job and work diligently. Inside the farm, workers were subjected to harsh conditions. The wooden shacks they lived in had leaky roofs, which led to their homes flooding up to their ankles. Along with this, they would need to use camp stoves for cooking and sleep on old mattresses on the floor. Conditions were so bad they needed to get basic necessities such as food and clothing from non-profit organizations. They would use what little wage they were paid toward a rent of $300 per month. Even so, Chunli, along with many other immigrants, would call this place home. Chunli would later state that he'd been struggling with mental illness for years. In the past, he'd been known to resort to violence. In 2013, an incident would result in a former coworker named Mr. Wang filing a restraining order against him. On March 12, 2013, Chunli would sneak into Mr. Wang's room demanding his salary. Mr. Wang would respond that he needed to collect it from the restaurant they worked at since he didn't have it. Chunli would then state, "Today I am going to kill you." Moments later, Chunli would pick up a pillow and then place it over Mr. Wang's face, attempting to suffocate him. Luckily, Mr. Wang was able to push the pillow away and call for his roommates. However, Chunli had locked the door to the room they were in to keep the roommates out. Chunli would continue attempting to murder his coworker, wrestling him on top of his bed. Eventually, Mr. Wang was able to calm Chunli down, who would then leave peacefully. It was only 2 days later that Mr. Wang would file the restraining order on Chunli. In his application, he would write that Chunli had threatened to use a kitchen knife to split his head. Following this, Chunli would be ordered to stay 300 yards away from the apartment until July of 2013. It was almost a decade later that Chunli would find himself working on Half Moon Bay's farm. It was later that he would state that he had been treated harshly by his coworkers, being bullied by them for years. Along with this, he would reveal that he had been forced to work extremely long, laborious hours. Chunli would voice his concerns about the bullying and long hours to his supervisor, but would be ignored. Regardless, an incident would soon occur between Chunli and another worker. This incident would involve a bulldozer and a forklift colliding, resulting in property damage. Chunli would point to the finger at the other worker and vice versa. It is unknown who is truly at fault, as workers would later decline to comment. Regardless, this incident would later be the catalyst for a mass shooting. Days later, on January 23, 2023, Chunli would be called into his supervisor's office regarding the damage. Despite the fact that Chunli insisted it was his coworker's fault, the supervisor would inform him that he was to pay for it. The bill for the damages totaled up to $100. Something about this sparked a deep anger within Chunli. Maybe it was the years of bullying, or maybe he truly didn't believe that he was at fault, or maybe he just didn't have the money to pay for the damages. Either way, chaos would soon ensue. Around half an hour later, he would return. It was here he would pull out a gun and shoot the supervisor, killing him. Unfortunately, he didn't stop here. Chunli would then head over to the farm greenhouses, pull the gun out of his red knapsack, and point it at another fellow worker. From here, he would shout at the worker in Mandarin. The farm worker, being terrified, would walk backwards, covering his face while pleading for his life. Regardless, Chunli would still fire his gun, sending a bullet into the man who then collapsed to the ground. Later on, another worker would state, "He looked evil, he was super red and very angry." Chunli would then head over to a second worker who was picking up a pallet of mushrooms. The second worker too would then be shot by Chunli. At this time, his first victim would get off the ground and attempt to flee. However, in his injured state, he wasn't able to get far. Chunli would soon catch up and shoot him again, this time ending his life. Two other coworkers who had witnessed both murders would start to their car, startling Chunli in the process. As the two sped off in reverse, he would jump into a forklift, laughing maniacally while heading toward the encampment. Once he reached it, he would run inside, looking for more of his coworkers and shooting them as well. To the wife of one of his first two victims, he would calmly approach her, stating, "I killed your husband, you should join him." In total, 4 people would be shot and killed on the farm. Another victim would be severely wounded but would live. Unfortunately, Chunlin's rampage didn't stop here. Once he was satisfied, he would run to his car and drive 3 miles to Concord Farms, a location he worked at 7 years previously. He would enter the farm, pull his gun out, and take the lives of 3 more victims. A couple who worked on the farm would later say they walked outside and saw 3 bodies on the ground. Somehow, not hearing the gunshots, they originally thought it was workers taking a nap. In her own words, the wife would state, "I thought he had worked too hard and therefore was lying on the ground, but then I saw the blood. There was so much blood." The couple, horrified at this point, would then retreat back inside. Following the shootings, Chunlin would drive to the San Mateo County Sheriff's substation. There he would park his car and wait to turn himself in. Around 2 hours later, deputies would spot his vehicle, pull him out, and arrest him. Families at both farms would be placed in hotels by police while they gathered evidence. Many of the families stated they didn't want to go back. During an interview in jail, Chunlin would confess to the murders and state that he regretted them. He now faces 7 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. If convicted, he could face the death penalty.